There are many different messages on fats. So many. So what I'd like to do today, I'd like to show you the molecular structure of fats. You see, when you understand the molecular structure of fats, then you begin to understand how the body uses it. You begin to understand why the body uses it in that way. So you will never again be swayed by popular opinion on should we eat fats, what are the best fats, what are the bad fats. I'm going to begin by showing you the omega-3 fatty acid. Omega-3 is a fat that we hear a lot of, and the reason for that is that it's an essential fatty acid. You might often see it written like this, EFA, essential fatty acid. What essential means is that the body cannot make it, you have to put it in. Whenever you read the word essential, that's what it means. And what are we told is the highest source of omega-3? Fish? And yet no creature can put omega-3 into their fatty acid chain, only plants can. So why are fish so high? Because fish are eating a one-celled algae that is high. So you can do superior to fish oil. You can get your omega-3 by foods, by plant foods. Flaxseed is the highest source of omega-3. Flaxseed and linseed are basically the same thing. Chia seed is the second highest source of omega-3. What I'd like to show you now is why it is so important in the body. Omega-3 is an 18-chain fatty acid. This is the molecular structure of omega-3. There are 19 trillion of these in one drop of oil, so that's the magnification that we're looking at. Notice that there are hydrogen atoms either side, and right in the middle they are linked together by carbon atoms. What the three means that at the third carbon atom there's a double bond. So let's count this. 1, 2, 3. The double bond means that instead of one link, there are two links. And whenever you get a double bond, these hydrogen atoms go, and the hydrogen atoms underneath develop an electromagnetic field between them. As a result, they start to repel each other, and that causes a kink in the chain because of this repelling action. In omega-3, or the omega-3 found in flaxseed and linseed, there are 3 double bonds. So 1, 2, 3, we've got another one there, 1, 2, 3, and we have another one there. So these double bonds are gone. These hydrogen atoms are gone. And the electromagnetic field is happening underneath. This causes 3 kinks in the chain. Number 2 kink, number 3 kink, causing the oil to be a very fluid oil. It's a very thin oil because of its 3 double bonds. What do they paint cricket bats with? With linseed oil, because it disperses so easily. So when you eat this oil, it causes the blood to thin. It disperses on the skin. It's a lovely oil to take via mouth, so you get nice supple skin. The body loves using this omega-3 for cell membrane function and repair. So the name given to this oil is a polyunsaturated fatty acid. Poly meaning more than one double bond. Unsaturated because there are 3 empty spots on the fatty acid chain. Let's have a look at the effect of the double bonds in the body. They create an electromagnetic field. That's important for us because we are electrical people. There's a spark of electricity in every cell of the body. And specifically, our electrical system is our nervous system. So it's a great brain food. Double bonds are also light sensitive. That means the light is attracted into these empty spots. Those empty spots are also heat sensitive. The heat is attracted in. And they also act like a magnet to oxygen. What this means is that when we eat these oils, our electromagnetic field is ensured. We absorb more light, more vitamin D. We're able to manage our heat better in our body, and we're getting more oxygen. Remember, the most vital element needed for life? Cancer cannot live in the presence of oxygen. What an amazing oil. In fact, some writers have called this a super polyunsaturated fatty acid. The body uses omega-3 for the starting point in the anti-inflammatory cascade, so it's a powerful anti-inflammatory. What about sunflower? Sunflower contains omega-6 fatty acids. It is also an 18-chain fatty acid, but the 6 indicates the position on the fatty acid chain of the first double bond. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's its first double bond, and there are 2 double bonds in this fatty acid chain. Here's another one here. So we've got hydrogen atoms along here, hydrogen here, hydrogen atoms along here, and all along the bottom. And we've got 2 repelling actions here, always under the double bond. So that means we have 2 kinks in this fatty acid chain. It's not as thin an oil, but it is still quite a thin oil. This is also given the name polyunsaturated fatty acid. Poly meaning more than 1 double bond. Unsaturated because there's still empty spots on the fatty acid chain. What about olive and almond oil? They are high in omega-9. 9 indicating the position on the fatty acid chain of the first double bond. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's our double bond there. And there is only 1 double bond in olive oil and almond oil. So you've got your hydrogen atoms along here, and also along this area here. We've got 1 repelling action. So there's only 1 kink in olive oil, almond oil. As a result, this oil is called a monounsaturated fatty acid. Mono meaning 1 double bond, unsaturated because there is still an empty spot on the fatty acid chain. What about coconut? Coconut oil, instead of being a long-chain fatty acid like these 3 18-chain fatty acids, coconut contains short and medium-chain fatty acids. I have drawn a 10-chain fatty acid here, which is considered a short-chain fatty acid. There are no double bonds in coconut, so every spot is full. And in the cold weather, it's a solid fat. So this fat is called a saturated fat. Saturated because there are no double bonds. So what is the best oil? Well, which body function are you talking about? Because our body uses them all and it needs them all. I'll give you a simple illustration to give you an idea of this. I used to work in an operating theatre, and in the operating theatre we had a core team. We had our surgeon, and we'll call our surgeon 3 double bonds. We had our assisting physician, there's 2 double bonds. We had our theatre nurse, 1 double bond, and we had our trolley boy, no double bond. Our trolley boy's name was Fred, and he was a very stocky, strong young man of about 35. He was very good at his job. He could lift the patients with ease. He was so strong. He was very good at scrubbing out infected theatres. We enjoyed Fred because he did his job well, but there was just one area where we were constantly trying to refine Fred. When it was time to take the patient into recovery, I would say to Fred, "Fred, it is time to wheel the patient in recovery." And he'd say, "Fine." And he'd start wheeling it, but he would bang the trolley against the door, he would bang it. And we were constantly saying, "Fred, gentle, gentle." And he was gentle, you know, he had a job to do and he just did it. Now, if the surgeon didn't turn up, would we put Fred on the job of surgery? No, no, no. And if Fred didn't turn up one day, would we put the surgeon on Fred's job? No, no, no. The surgeon had beautiful hands and we don't want to hurt the hands. Can you see my illustration? In the operating theatre, every member of the team was vital, and actually we could not function if any of them were not there. And it is exactly the same with these oils in the human body. Every oil has its function. The body loves using omega-3 for cell membrane function and repair. Let me show you the omega-3 family. The omega-3 that is found in flaxseed, linseed, is called alpha-linolenic acid. Alpha-linolenic acid has 3 double bonds. And we've already seen that's quite a fluid oil. In the body, it's broken down to EPA. In the body, ALA is broken down to EPA. EPA has 5 double bonds. In the body, EPA is broken down to DHA. And DHA has 6 double bonds. So you can see how fluid these other oils are, incredibly fluid. And the body loves using DHA for cell membrane function and repair. In the fish eats ALA in the one-celled algae. In the fish, ALA is converted to EPA. In the fish, EPA is converted to DHA. And then man extracts DHA and says, this is superior because the DHA that the cell uses is already available for you. You don't have to wait for the body to convert this to this to this. But if 3 double bonds is sensitive to light, heat and oxygen, how sensitive is 6 double bonds? And I question the ability to extract the DHA and not have it exposed to light, heat and oxygen and thus destroyed. And the fish that are the highest in DHA are also the highest in mercury. And of course the DHA, being a fat, is found in the fat. And so I believe it is much safer and much easier just to get your omega-3s from the flaxseed or the chia seed. Our waterways and our seas are very polluted today, and it's difficult to get fish oil that is not contaminated. So what is the best oil? Your body uses them for different functions. Your body loves using the omega-3 for cell membrane function and repair. Omega-6 and omega-9 are used as side issues, whereas the body loves burning coconut oil as fuel. Let me show you. Let's go to the gastrointestinal tract. Here is mouth, here is your esophagus, here is stomach, here is liver, here is gallbladder, bile duct comes down, and bile duct connects with the neck of the pancreas. And here is your duodenum, the first part of the small intestine. There's pyloric sphincter. The duodenum is lined with little villi. Let me magnify the villi. Up in the middle of the villi is the lacteal. This is part of the lymphatic system. And over the villi is a blood capillary network. Do you remember I said to you the other day, anything that goes in our gastrointestinal tract is not part of you or me till it gets broken down to tiny substances, then absorbed into the blood. Let me show you now what happens with the 3 long-chain fatty acids. They come into the mouth, they are not dealt with in the mouth. They come into the stomach, they are not dealt with in the stomach. They come into the duodenum, bile from the gallbladder emulsifies it or breaks it down into tiny little particles. Then pancreatic lipase further breaks it down to glycerol and fatty acids, and then it is absorbed through the brush border around the lacteal, going straight to through the brush border around the villi and into the lacteal. So there's your lacteal there. The lymphatic system takes it to the liver. The liver sees these 3 long-chain fatty acids and says, the surgeons have appeared. Store them, keeping them for cell membrane function and repair. This is not what happens with the coconut oil with its short and medium chain fatty acids. It comes into the mouth, and underneath the tongue are sublingual glands that release lingual lipase. Lingual lipase is an enzyme that breaks down only short and medium chain fatty acids. So the coconut is unique in that the breakdown happens in the mouth. The breakdown having already begun, it comes into the stomach, breakdown's already happening. Comes into the duodenum, does not need bile, does not need pancreatic lipase, is taken through the lining of the gut straight into the blood. The coconut oil is the only one that gets taken through to the blood, taken to the liver, burnt as fuel. It's an amazing oil. So it is burnt as fuel immediately. No other oil is like that. So if someone wanted to eat an oil that the body burnt, what would they eat? The coconut. So this is the best weight loss oil because the body does not store it. The body burns it as fuel. Now if someone's going to drink huge amounts of coconut oil, maybe the body will be forced to store it because so much is coming in. Whereas the body stores these long-chain fatty acids. And yet we have been told for so long, if you want to lose weight, you must stop the coconut. It's a saturated fat. Saturated fats have got a bad name, and yet they do not deserve that bad name. It can be like the farmer who got a whole lot of coconuts cheap. He gave them to his cows to fatten them up. The cows lost fat, put on muscles, started bounding around the paddocks. So if you want to lose weight, put on muscle and bound around the paddocks, what oil do you eat? The coconut. Coconut has a few fatty acids. One is lauric acid. And lauric acid is found in coconut, 48%. There's only one other food that has lauric acid. It's a strong antimicrobial fatty acid. Butter has 2%. That's the only other food that has it. Actually, breast milk has it too. They say breastfed babies are smarter because breast milk contains omega-3, omega-6, omega-9, saturated fats. It's an excellent fuel for babies, the best. Can't be equaled, actually. Coconut is also 40% antifungal. It's because of its other fatty acids as well as the lauric acid. It has caprylic acid and capri acid. It's an excellent oil. An excellent oil or cream or milk for people who have pancreatic problems or liver problems because it bypasses the need for bile and it bypasses the need for pancreatic lipase. And if you go into the supermarket and go to where they sell the baby formulas, the milk formulas, you will find in nearly every milk formula there will be either coconut oil or palm oil. And they add that to baby food because it's so easy to absorb, does not need the bile and does not need the pancreatic lipase. Dr. Bruce Fife has written several books on the wonders of the coconut oil. One's called Coconut Cures, one's called The Miracle Oil Coconut Oil, one's called Oil Pulling. His two most recent books are Stop Autism Now and Stop Alzheimer's Now. Excellent books. And they are both books on degeneration and neuroinflammation. Stop Autism Now is probably more about children, whereas Stop Alzheimer's Now is more about adults and all cases of neurodegenerations. And he uses the coconut oil. There is one chapter in both those books that's called The Ketone Miracle. And he gives the story of how in about 1920, a group of doctors were putting their patients on strict fasting to cure epilepsy, and it did. You see, in fasting, the fat cells are getting broken down to release energy, and they release something called ketones, which can be used as fuel. But ketones are neuroprotective, and they're neurohealers. So what these doctors found is that they were getting phenomenal results with this fasting, but of course a person must eat. So they decided to try a diet that mimicked the fasting, which was a very high fat diet. So they basically stopped all carbohydrates, they ate very few vegetables, high meat, high fat diet. And the same thing happened. It's called the ketogenic diet. The people did not return to their epilepsy, but a very, very difficult meal to eat because of the high fat. And Dr. Bruce Fife, in his book, he calls it the coconut ketogenic diet, where he basically suggests doing what I've been advising here. Drop the carbohydrates right down, increase the fibre with your vegetables, good amounts of protein, and he uses animal protein, but I suggest the vegetable protein. And he says begin by having 1 teaspoon of coconut oil 3 times a day, even build that up to a dessert spoon of coconut oil 3 times a day. Some people even getting up to a tablespoon of coconut oil 3 times a day. With this excess coconut oil going in the body, the liver converts this medium chain fatty acids to ketones. And ketones, as I told you, are neuroprotectors and they are neurohealers. There was a movie made, I think, in the 90s called First Do No Harm. It has Meryl Streep in it, and it's a true story about a mother whose child got epilepsy. They were, of course, rushed him to hospital, tried different medications. Some medications sent this child like a mad boy, jumping off buildings, all sorts of things. So they changed his medication. Now he just turned into a zombie. And they were beginning to talk about cutting the top of his head off to do some tests on it. So the mother was terrified, as you can imagine. The child was only about 7, so she went to the library and she researched and she researched and she researched, and she found the ketogenic diet. And it was done at Johns Hopkins Hospital. I think it is still done there. And so, to cut a long story short, she got her son there. They immediately fasted this little boy for 2 days. Do you know that was not a worry, because the medication he was on, he just didn't want to eat. They fasted him for 2 days, then they put him on the ketogenic diet, which was high fat. You know, he was eating bacon and eggs, and some meals were like mince, but a little bit of tomato, a little bit of lettuce. I think in the first week he went from something like 10 seizures a day to about 3 in the week. I can't remember the exact timelines, but you can read it in Stop Autism Now, and you can see it in the movie First Do No Harm. But I think it only took a matter of months and this child was no seizures at all. And years later, still no seizures. Now, they told the parents that he would eventually have mental retardation because of the amount of fits that he was having. And he got to the point where he's the top of his class in school. Wow, just incredible story. And that's why the chapter in the book is called The Ketone Miracle. Just incredible. And Bruce Fife says you can get a far more acceptable dietary program by just dropping your carbs, having the vegetables, the proteins, and supplementing with the coconut oil. In Stop Alzheimer's Now, he has equally amazing stories of people who've been having turnarounds with Alzheimer's, dementia, multiple sclerosis, Huntington's chorea, Parkinson's disease. So I think every home should have that book, because I don't know anyone who wants Alzheimer's. And he shows in this book that you can prevent damage to the brain cells, but you can also, by implementing the coconut oil, begin to have a healing taking place. The other day I told you that every membrane around the cell, every cell has a membrane around it, and that membrane is 50% protein, 50% fat, except for the brain cell, 70% fat. So that gives you a little bit of an idea on why the fat is so important in brain health. 100 years ago and before, human beings got their polyunsaturated fats from the food that they ate. There's only been 2 oils that have been used since time dot, and that is the olive oil and the coconut oil. And both of these oils can be extracted from the flesh of the plant, so they're extracted very easily. Women used to have presses in their kitchen and they could just extract the olive oil very easily. They found that if they put the olive oil in a glass bowl on the bench, it would get a bitter taste. Now we know it's because the light, heat and oxygen were attracted into that empty spot and it would cause the oil to go rancid. And so they quickly learnt that if they put the oil in clay jars with cork tops in the basement and kept it cool, it retained its nice sweet flavour. It didn't go bitter. Both of these oils have been extracted in a very simple methods by women in their kitchens for centuries. And as you see by the molecular structure of these oils, they are the most stable oil. Coconut is the most stable. Olive oil is not as stable. It does have one double bond, so you should always buy it in tins or dark jars because it does deteriorate when exposed to light, heat and oxygen. But all of these oils really, I believe, we should be getting them from our food. Olive oil and coconut oil have been used for centuries and can be extracted very simply with the cold pressed method. You can get oils from these seeds now, and in the majority of cases they're extracted with chemicals and high heat, which always destroys the double bonds. So when you do buy olive oil, very important that you buy first cold pressed extra virgin olive oil, and you can get some very nice Australian olive oils now. You can't always believe what the label says when you get your oils from Greece and Italy. The standards are a little bit different. But I myself, I like to support local industry too in the Australian oils. Traditionally, olive oil and coconut oil have also been used medicinally. Olive oil has been used internally for upset stomachs, for constipation. There's also a recipe that's been used for centuries to expel gallstones. It's half a cup of olive oil, half a cup of lemon juice, drunk before bed. That amount of oil causes the gallbladder to start releasing huge amounts of bile, and in the process the stones can be also released. I do caution anyone who wants to try it, you're best to use it with someone who knows what they're doing. Coconut oil has been used traditionally too. Because of its potent antifungal properties, it's excellent in using for eczema, psoriasis. It also nourishes the skin very nicely. But as you can see by what I've shown you in this lecture, it's an excellent medicine for someone who has any yeast problems, and it is excellent medicine for people who have pancreatic or gallbladder problems because it bypasses them. Let's have a look at planet Earth, at where these oils grow. Here we have the tropics. Which oil is grown in the tropics? That would be the coconut, yeah? It's perfectly designed as a saturated fat in this hot climate. Because it has no double bonds, coconut is light resistant, heat resistant and oxygen resistant. It is the most stable oil, perfectly designed in those hot climates. If we go up the planet, we come to the Mediterranean. And of course we know that your olives and your almonds are grown in the Mediterranean. So the omega-9 is perfectly designed for this environment. If you go up the planet, this is what you'll find, that plants grown in these areas contain these oils. And they're perfectly designed for that environment. In his book, Fats That Heal, Fats That Kill, Udo Erasmus quotes research where they tested the fatty acids in a plant grown here, very high in omega-9. Same species of plant grown further up was higher in omega-6. Same species of plant grown up the top was higher in omega-3. In other words, we should be eating the foods that are grown in our area. Now, we live on a wonderful part of the planet in Australia. We're about down here, so we can actually access a little bit of all of them. And of course, knowing what the different oils give you enables you to use those oils depending on different conditions in your body. Anyone with neuroinflammation, they certainly might step up the coconut oil. Someone wants to thin their blood, the omega-3 is excellent for that, and also for reducing inflammation. Eudo Erasmus gave the story of a man who went to live with the Eskimos. And by the way, if you go into the Eskimos' igloos, you'll hear a lot of laughter. They're sparky, even in those short winter days. Their electromagnetic field's working well. They absorb their light very well when they get it. They're able to manage their heat. The oxygen in the brain keeps them vitalized and invigorated. What are they eating huge amounts of? Fish, seal blubber, all extremely high in omega-3 because the plants, the seaweeds, are very, very high. And so the fish are high, and then the seal that eats the fish is high. But in the northern countries of the planet today, there's a mental disease spreading through called the SAD disease. It's seasonal affective disorder. You may have heard of it. They blame the lack of sunshine, but there's never been sun. Something else has come into the equation. And the problem is they're eating the SAD diet. Have you heard of the SAD diet? Standard Australian diet, standard American diet. That diet is usually very high in carbohydrates, high in animal and animal fat, very low in the omegas, usually quite low in vegetables with all your minerals. It's the SAD diet. I think God's got a sense of humour because the nut with the highest amount of omega-3 looks like a brain, and of course that's your walnut. So we need to be eating a variety of all of these oils because they are required, in fact essential for proper body function. The question is asked, where do we get our calcium from if we're not eating any dairy products? Let me show you. This is a glass of milk. And this milk is high in protein and it is high in calcium. But animal protein is very dirty burning fuel. In fact, only 58% of it is burnt as fuel. And that's leaving a sulfur waste which has a very acid effect on the body. So this 42% waste has to be neutralized or alkalized. And so the body uses the most alkaline mineral, which is calcium, to negate the sulfur residue. How much calcium is that left for the human body? None. In fact, the countries in this world that are consuming the highest amounts of dairy products have the highest incidence of osteoporosis. So where are we going to get our calcium from? We will get our calcium from the same place the biggest boned creatures on the planet get their calcium from. Where does the elephant get its calcium from? And I think its leg bone would be about as big and as thick as me. Greens. Let's have a look at calcium. Calcium in the vegetarian kingdom, its highest is found in the sesame seed. And a very nice way to eat the sesame seed is as tahini. At Misty Mountain Health Retreat, we do quite a few dressings and sauces that contain tahini. If you look in Lebanese food, their baba ganoush has tahini, their hummus has tahini. So there's a lot of foods that contain tahini, gives a beautiful creaminess to it. Very high in calcium. So instead of giving the children a glass of milk when they get home from school, have a platter of raw veggies and a little bowl of hummus and let them dip in there. They will get more calcium, and it's the calcium that they can use. Also soy, and again, the soy must be organically grown, non-genetically modified, and the other legume is chickpeas. And that's why your hummus is such an excellent form of calcium, because it's a combination of your chickpeas and your tahini. Figs. Your dried figs are quite a high source. Also greens. And as I showed you earlier in our acid-alkaline lecture, calcium is one of the alkaline minerals, and it is found in high amounts in your greens. Most people lack calcium because they lack vitamin D. They're not having the sunshine. Or they're taking things that leach the calcium. Caffeine leaches calcium. Sugar leaches calcium. So can you see, you have to look at the whole picture. And when we talked about hormones, I told you that progesterone boosts bone building cells. So there's a hormone factor as well. Our bones should not be breaking, as they are in Australia in the latter years of our lives. When I was at school, there was a triangle in the Common Sense Cookery book. And the bottom rung of the triangle was meat and dairy. The next rung of the triangle was grains. And the next rung of the triangle was fruit and vegetables. And right up the top were fats and sugars. In about the late 80s, early 90s, they changed the triangle because of heart disease and because of the belief of the high dairy products with their high saturated fats were clogging up the arteries. And so the triangle was changed. On the bottom, they put grains. Next, they put fruit and veg. There's a lot of research that's been around for a while showing the value of all the minerals that are found in the fruits and vegetables. And then the meat and dairy. And then right up the top, the fats and sugars. What should the triangle contain? Because as I've been showing you over the last few days, this high grain diet is causing a whole lot of other problems. And as we saw in the acid alkaline lecture, it's creating a very acid environment. And by the way, heart disease has not dropped, has it? It's still #1. Well, actually, it's neck to neck with cancer. And what was introduced, I think in about the late 80s, 90s, was margarine, yeah? As an alternative. Is margarine any good? Well, let me show you how it's made. Let's make margarine out of this flaxseed oil. Well, we've got a problem. And the problem is the oil is liquid. So we have to make it solid. How is it made solid? They saturate it with hydrogen ions. To do that, they have to use a catalyst, and they usually use nickel or aluminium. So every tub of margarine has a trace of nickel or aluminium in it. And we also know how both those metals are contributing to Alzheimer's. So now it's saturated with the hydrogen ions, and this causes this hydrogen atom to flick over as this one, as this one. Now the double bond has been lost and the oil is straight. And that's exactly what is wanted. Now you open the lid of the margarine and it'll spread. It'll spread very nicely. But this structure that I've drawn for you there is not known in nature. It is very closely, it's very similar in molecular structure to plastic. Margarine is a toxic fat. It is not known by the body, and when it goes into the body cannot deal with it. It cannot put it anywhere, so it has to get rid of it as soon as possible, and so it tries to eliminate it via the skin. Do you know skin cancer rates have increased since margarine was consumed? And heart disease has not dropped. And what's the definition of insanity? To do what you've always done and expect different results. It is not working. Margarine is a toxic fat. It should not go anywhere near the body. Some people say to me, well, what about olive oil margarine? My question is, what about it? If you take the lid off it, is it liquid like olive oil? No. The only way you can safely get your olive oil solid is to put it in the freezer. And I know some families do that. And the children are quite excited to have a tub of butter, but it's actually just frozen olive oil. And you put it on your bread and it will spread. So then the next question is asked, well, what do you put on your bread? I like olive oil on my bread, and my husband likes avocado on his bread. Let's go back to our triangle. What should our triangle be? Fruit and vegetables. For some people, the fruit has to be reduced, so we'll put fruit on sideways, but vegetables, no limit on the vegetables. And the next rung, legumes, seeds, they're good proteins, grains. Remember, the grains are the negotiating part of the meal, and then up the top we've got the fats and the sugars. So we'll say oils, honey, all very concentrated foods, maple syrup. My rung has 3, because I believe that the vegetarian food and the vegetarian protein is a far superior one. Let's have a look at that triangle through a few different windows. Let's look at it through the pH window. Does it get a tick? It does, because the most alkaline forming food are your vegetables, so it gets a tick. Let's look at it through the point of view of the colon. The colon needs to be swept every day. Vegetables are high in fibre, high in minerals, low in sugars, whereas fruit is high in fibre, high in sugars, but low in minerals. So for your healing, your vegetable is superior. So for the colon, oh yes, we've got our fibre. What about the liver? And as we showed in a previous lecture, the liver needs beta-carotenes found in your orange and your red coloured vegetables. There it is in large amounts. It also needs protein. Protein is coming through in your legumes, in your seeds. The other thing up the top here is your nuts. Nuts are an excellent form of protein, fibre and fats, but you must not overdo them. If you overdo nuts, you can develop an allergy to nuts. They're very concentrated food. So looking at it from the liver point of view, it gets a tick. We've got our proteins here. We've got our beta-carotenes in our orange and our yellow and our green coloured vegetables. What about the brain? We haven't discussed the brain in detail yet, but the brain needs the essential fatty acids in the oils and nuts. It needs the proteins to make the neurotransmitters out of. It needs the vegetables for the minerals, so the brain does get a tick. What about cost? What's your cheapest food in this triangle? It is your vegetables. Your concentrated foods are the most expensive, but you only need a little bit of them. So cost-wise, it gets a tick. What about availability? There's always fresh fruit and vegetables available. And your legumes, your seeds can all be stored. So we get a tick again. So you will find a lot of nutrition books still have the old, basically outdated triangle. But there are many nutritionists and doctors who are claiming that this is the accurate triangle. And I totally agree. And you can see by looking at it through our different windows, they all get a tick. So the million-dollar question often asked now is, what do we eat for breakfast? What do we eat for lunch? What do we eat for tea? Let's have a look at some breakfast. Breakfast. My suggestion is always start with fruit. You see, breakfast means break fast. And fruit is a lovely, light, refreshing way for your stomach and your colon to break its fast. If a person has a yeast presence, if a person has diabetes, I would suggest they go for the low GI fruits. If a person is conquering cancer, I would say put fruit on hold initially. And then one may have a grain. It might be millet, It might be quinoa. It might be buckwheat. The Polish love their buckwheat. Aussies are getting used to it. Aussies like buckwheat pancakes. There are a variety of grains, and it allows the family to start getting used to different grains. And then on that, one might have some coconut cream. Remember, excellent oil. Or one might have the pear Brazil nut cream that I mentioned earlier. On top of that, one may sprinkle some chia seeds. Sandra Cabot made LSA famous. LSA. And in many shops you can buy linseed or flaxseed, sunflower and almond already ground up in little plastic bags ready for you. But don't touch them, because you can see from my illustration today, the light, heat and oxygen quickly cause a destruction of the double bonds. So within about an hour of grinding, especially the flaxseed or the linseed and the sunflower, the light, heat and oxygen have been attracted into here and the oils are spoiled. There is a use for your coffee grinder. You can grind your seeds in it just before you eat your breakfast. So let's put in some LSA too. Flaxseed or linseed is a very high oil seed. 3 teaspoons of ground linseed will deliver 1 teaspoon of the oil. So it's a very high oil. Most people are very happy with that breakfast. Or some might prefer savoury. So this is breakfast number 1. Breakfast number 2, maybe some fruit, always a nice way to start the day, with some nuts and seeds. And then they might have some sourdough toast. If you're gluten-free, you might go to a millet toast. If you're not gluten-free, you might go to a spelt sourdough toast. You see, sourdough is just the way that the bread rises. It's a cultured bread. It breaks down the protein or the gluten in the grain, so sourdough bread is more digestible. On top of that, you might have some savoury lentils. Or on top of that, you might have some scrambled tofu, which is a delicious way to have tofu. Some may prefer that. So what do we have for lunch? So you see, the fine-tuning in every case is yours. We should enjoy what we eat. Lunch. Let me think of what we had for lunch today. I'll write you down what we had for lunch today. We had a kale salad. We had avocado. We had a quinoa salad. And the quinoa salad had tomato, onion and broccoli in it. And then we had a shepherd's pie. And the shepherd's pie had a topping of mashed potato, and the nicest way to mash your potato is with olive oil and Celtic salt. Mashed potato. And underneath the mashed potato, there was brown lentils in a savoury sauce. If you want to know how to make legumes taste amazing, buy an Indian cookbook, buy a Lebanese or Italian cookbook. They know how to make them taste nice. They know their legumes because for centuries, that's what their protein source was. They don't have the land to graze the cattle. We had a couple come here, they're Lebanese, brother and sister. They were in their early 30s. They said, recently a friend of ours came for tea and we said to our mum, "Mum, cook some lentils. Our friend is a vegetarian." She said, "I'm not going to serve poor man's food." You see, growing up in Italy, they saw the lentils as poor man's food. I said, well, now you can go back and tell her it's the rich man's food because it is such a superior protein. And there's so many things that you can do with legumes. You just need to find out what to do with them. What about tea? But first of all, where I go there, let's make an assessment of the fibre. Everything's got fibre. The protein. There's a little bit of protein in your quinoa or your quinoa. There's protein in your lentils. And I think that the lentils were made savoury with miso. Miso puts a lovely flavour in lentils. Am I right? Oh, I just got a shake. There was no miso in it today. Sometimes there's miso in it. So there's our protein and fats. There was coconut cream in this. Yes, I got a nod there. Olive oil in the mashed potato and also some olive oil in the brown lentils. I got nods for all of that. And I think there was a bit of olive oil with the kale. Oh, another nod. And avocado. So you see, this meal was an excellent source of fibre, protein and healthy fats. And yet, very low in carbohydrates. Where are the carbohydrates? Some carbohydrates in the potato, small amount of carbohydrates in the brown lentils. I had lunch, I finished lunch 2 hours ago now, and I'm comfortably satisfied, 2.5 hours ago. I have no want at all to eat now. And you will find when you feed children meals that are high in fibre, good amounts of protein and healthy fats, that there's just no desire or need to eat all day long. As a mother, I was not interested in being in the kitchen all day. So I made sure that my children had meals that were high in fibre, some good proteins and healthy fats. What about in the breakfast? I've rubbed off our breakfast, but I can recall our fibre was in our fruit. Actually, the fibre's in everything. The protein in the first breakfast there was protein in the quinoa, there's protein in the buckwheat, there's protein in the millet, there's protein a little bit in the coconut cream, some in the pear cream, protein in the chia seed and all the linseed, sunflower seed and almonds. In the second breakfast, there was protein in the nuts, and there was protein, of course, in your scrambled tofu or your savoury lentils. Whereas the fats in the first breakfast, there was fats in the coconut cream, in the pear cream, in the LSA, in the chia seed. So as you can see by my illustration, it is not hard to do that, because it is the fibre and it is the protein and it is the fat that keeps the food in the stomach longer. I trust that after this illustration, you will no more be swayed by popular opinion on fats. I trust that I have shown you enough evidence that the fats are important, the type of fat is important to eat them in their natural state with a little bit of added either olive oil or coconut, both excellent oils, and basically it is your palate that defines that. We don't need very much. In fact, in the shepherd's pie that was made today, we had 2, 4, 6, 7 people for lunch today, and I would endeavour to say that about a tablespoon of olive oil went into that dish. Would that be right? About that. Do you know what that means? Everyone got about half a teaspoon of olive oil. See, that's not a lot. And maybe everyone got a quarter of a teaspoon of coconut cream. You don't need very much. It gives it a beautiful flavour, it gives a beautiful richness. And how often have people's tables been deficient in flavour and taste because they think that the fats are bad? When I cook with olive oil, I put my olive oil in at the end of my meal so that I'm not destroying my double bond. If you did want to fry a little bit, sometimes our cook likes to fry a little bit to get the flavour out of the onion or the garlic, then the no double bonds coconut oil is the one to use. I know Zach does our potatoes in coconut oil and it is delicious, it is crunchy, and yet he does it in the oven. He lightly coats the potatoes, puts them in a high oven, and they're just like chips. Some people think we've deep fried them, but all we've done is put them in a high oven. Delicious. and yet you are not destroying because there are no double bonds. And the flavour. Most people don't even know that it's cooked in coconut oil because you can't even taste it. You certainly can overdo it. So, of course, we need to recognise that they're very concentrated foods and you don't need very much. So I trust you're excited with the prospect of beginning to implement some of these things into your lifestyle, into your table, into your food. Please enjoy.